Barefoot mother in the desert, the cowboy who saved her and her baby. The desert stretched wide and silent under a burning sky. Heat moved across the land like a slow wave, making the air shimmer above the sand.
Daniel Carter guided his horse carefully along a narrow trail that cut through dry hills and scattered rocks. He had traveled this path many times before. The land was familiar to him, and he understood its quiet moods better than most people did. Living alone on a ranch far from town had taught him patience, observation, and respect for nature's harsh beauty. Oh. Daniel was not a man who spoke much. Years of solitude had shaped him into someone who preferred actions over words. He woke before sunrise every morning, worked until the stars appeared, and spent his evenings sitting quietly on his porch, watching the horizon change colors. Some people in the nearby town thought he was distant or unfriendly, but the truth was simpler. He had learned to live with silence, and it had become comfortable for him. That afternoon he had left the ranch to inspect a broken section of fence near the outer edge of his property, Bay. Strong winds had passed through earlier in the week, and he wanted to make sure no animals had wandered off. His horse moved steadily beneath him, hooves kicking up small clouds of dust. The only sounds were the wind and the distant call of birds circling overhead. As he approached a low ridge, something unusual caught his attention. At first he thought it was just a shape formed by rocks or shadows, but then it moved slightly. Daniel slowed his horse, narrowing his eyes as he tried to understand what he was seeing. The closer he rode, the clearer it became that a person stood there. A woman walked slowly across the sand, her steps unsteady. She was barefoot, and the ground beneath her feet looked harsh and unforgiving. Her clothes were dusty, and her shoulders carried a weight that went beyond physical exhaustion. In her arms she held a baby wrapped carefully in cloth. Daniel's expression changed immediately. He felt a sharp concern rise in his chest. He dismounted quickly but calmly, not wanting to startle her. The woman noticed him and paused, her body tense, as if unsure whether to trust him. Her eyes showed both fear and determination, like someone who had faced many challenges and learned to stay alert. He spoke gently, keeping his voice calm and steady. Despair. He asked if she needed help. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she nodded slightly, as if gathering the strength to admit she could not continue alone. Daniel reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small water container. He offered it slowly, giving her space to decide. She accepted it with shaking hands, taking careful sips while keeping the baby close against her chest. The baby made a soft sound, and Daniel noticed how protective her posture was. Even in her exhaustion, she focused on keeping the child safe. That quiet strength impressed him. He had seen people give up under much less pressure, but she continued moving forward despite everything. Bed. She introduced herself as Maria, her voice soft and tired. She explained in short sentences that she had been traveling with others heading west toward a settlement. Bus. Their journey had become difficult when a wagon broke down. Supplies ran low, and decisions were made quickly. Bear. Somehow she had been left behind, forced to continue alone with her child. She had walked for hours, maybe longer, searching for any sign of help. Daniel listened without interrupting. He did not ask questions that might make her uncomfortable. Instead, he focused on what mattered in that moment. He could see she needed rest, food, and safety. First, without hesitation, he offered to take her to his ranch, explaining that it was not far away. Bet. She hesitated only briefly before agreeing. Daniel helped her climb onto his horse while he walked beside them, holding the reins. The journey back felt slow, but he kept a steady pace, watching carefully to make sure she remained stable. The sun began to lower behind the hills, painting the sky with warm colors that softened the harshness of the desert. During the walk, Maria spoke little. She seemed to save her energy, focusing on holding the baby securely. Daniel respected her silence. Occasionally, he pointed out landmarks or spoke reassuringly about how close they were to the ranch.
He wanted her to feel safe without overwhelming her with conversation. As they approached the ranch, the land changed slightly.
Dry grass surrounded a simple wooden house with a wide porch. A small barn stood nearby, and a water trough reflected the fading sunlight. To Daniel, it was simply home. To Maria, it looked like a place of refuge. Bah. He guided her inside carefully. The house was simple but clean, filled with practical furniture and quiet warmth. Maria looked around cautiously as if unsure whether she truly belonged there. Daniel set a chair near the table and encouraged her to sit while he prepared food. He moved efficiently, placing bread, warm soup, and fresh water in front of her. She thanked him softly before eating. Daniel noticed how slowly she ate, making sure not to rush after such a long period without proper rest. The baby soon fell asleep, and Maria's shoulders relaxed for the first time since he had found her. Back. After she finished, Daniel showed her a small room where she could rest. Clean blankets and a soft bed waited there. She looked surprised, perhaps not expecting such kindness from a stranger. Before closing the door, she paused and thanked him again, her voice filled with quiet emotion.
Daniel stepped back outside, giving her privacy.
He sat on the porch as the sky darkened and stars appeared one by one. The desert felt different that evening. The silence remained, but it no longer felt empty. Inside the house, another life existed, bringing a new energy he had not felt in years. He thought about how unexpected moments could change everything. That morning had begun like any other day, yet now his routine had shifted completely. He wondered who Maria truly was, what she had endured, and what would happen next. Still, he felt no regret about helping her. Something deep inside him believed he had done exactly what was right. As the night grew cooler, he checked once more to make sure everything was secure around the ranch. The animals were calm, the fences strong, and the stars bright above him. When he returned inside, he moved quietly so he would not wake her. The house felt warmer, more alive, and he realized that for the first time in a long while, he did not feel alone.
Outside, the desert remained vast and silent, but within the small wooden house a new story had begun. One built on trust, survival, and the quiet strength of two people whose paths had crossed at the exact moment they needed it most. Morning arrived slowly over the ranch, bringing soft light that spread across the desert like a gentle promise. The air felt cooler than the day before, and a quiet calm rested over the land. Daniel woke early, as he always did, before the sun fully rose. For a moment he lay still, remembering that he was no longer alone in the house. The thought felt strange, but not uncomfortable. Instead, it carried a quiet sense of responsibility. He stepped outside, allowing the cool morning air to wake him fully. The animals waited near the barn, and he began his usual routine, feeding the horses and checking the water supply. Round and inspected bows, yet his thoughts returned again and again to the woman and her baby sleeping inside. He wondered how she was feeling after a proper night's rest. When he returned to the house, he moved quietly, not wanting to disturb her. But Maria was already awake. She sat near the window, holding the baby close, watching the morning light stretch across the land. Her expression looked calmer than the day before. Though tiredness still lingered, her eyes seemed clearer, more focused. She greeted him with a small smile, and he nodded in return. He prepared a simple breakfast, placing food gently on the table. Maria thanked him softly,
and they ate in comfortable silence at first. The baby made small, happy sounds, and Daniel noticed how naturally Maria cared for the child, adjusting blankets and whispering soothing words.
After they finished eating, Maria began to share more about her journey. She spoke slowly, choosing her words carefully.
She explained that she had traveled through many small towns searching for work and safety. Life had not been easy, but she had always continued forward, guided by the hope of building a better future for her child. She did not speak in detail about every hardship, and Daniel respected that. He understood that some stories carried weight and required trust before being fully told. Psst. Daniel listened quietly, leaning against the table. He did not interrupt or offer unnecessary advice, but instead he allowed her to speak at her own pace. When she finished, he simply said that she was safe here and could rest as long as she needed. The words felt natural, even though offering such open support was new for him. Over the next few days, Maria began to regain her strength. She insisted on helping with small tasks around the house despite Daniel's gentle protests. She cleaned dishes, organized supplies, and even tried to learn how to prepare meals using the limited ingredients he kept stocked. Daniel watched her carefully at first, worried she might push herself too hard, but he soon realized that helping gave her a sense of purpose. The baby's laughter slowly filled the quiet rooms, bringing life to a space that had once felt too still. Bah! Daniel found himself pausing during his work, just to listen to the soft sounds coming from inside the house.
It surprised him how quickly he grew used to their presence.
One afternoon, Maria stepped outside for the first time since arriving. She stood on the porch, barefoot again, but this time without fear, feeling the wooden boards beneath her feet instead of harsh sand. She looked across the wide-open land with a mixture of wonder and uncertainty. Daniel noticed her expression and explained a little about the ranch, the boundaries of the property, the challenges of the land, and the way the seasons changed everything. She listened with interest, asking questions that showed genuine curiosity. He realized she was not just trying to survive, she wanted to understand the world around her. That quality impressed him deeply.
Later that week, a neighbor named Samuel rode by unexpectedly.
Samuel was one of the few people who occasionally visited the ranch, bringing supplies or sharing news from town. When he saw Maria and the baby, his eyebrows lifted in surprise. Daniel introduced them calmly, keeping the explanation simple. Samuel greeted her politely but with clear curiosity, though he did not ask too many questions.
After Samuel left, Maria seemed slightly nervous, as if worried about being judged or misunderstood. Daniel reassured her that the neighbor meant no harm.
Still, he noticed how carefully she watched the horizon afterward, as if expecting trouble to appear.
Days turned into a comfortable rhythm.
In the mornings, Daniel worked outside while Maria cared for the baby and managed small tasks indoors. Sometimes she joined him outside, observing how he repaired fences or handled tools. She listened closely, eager to learn even though she had never lived on a ranch before. One evening they sat on the porch watching the sunset. The sky turned shades of gold and orange, and the desert looked almost peaceful despite its harshness. Maria spoke about how different this place felt compared to the crowded towns she had passed through.
She said the silence here felt honest, not lonely.
Daniel considered her words carefully. He had always seen silence as protection, but hearing her describe it differently made him think. As the week continued, small moments of trust grew between them. Maria began to laugh more often, and Daniel found himself sharing short stories from his past. Simple memories about growing up, learning ranch work, and choosing a life away from busy communities. But did not share everything, but he spoke more than he had in years. One afternoon, while preparing food together, Maria admitted she felt uncertain about staying too long. She did not want to become dependent or feel like a burden. Daniel responded calmly, telling her that helping someone in need did not feel like a burden to him. He explained that the ranch had always been large enough for more than one person. His words were simple, but they carried sincerity. That night, after she went to sleep, Daniel remained awake longer than usual, sitting on the porch under a sky full of stars. He thought about how quickly life could change by. Only days earlier, he had expected nothing beyond his usual routine. Now the house felt warmer, filled with quiet conversations and shared meals. He wondered what the future might hold. Would Maria leave once she regained full strength? Would the ranch return to its old silence? The thought created a strange heaviness inside him. Yet he reminded himself that helping her had never been about keeping her there. It had simply been the right thing to do.
Inside, Maria watched her baby sleeping peacefully.
She felt safe for the first time in a long while, though uncertainty about tomorrow remained. Still, she allowed herself to rest, trusting that for now, this ranch was a place of stability. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, but within the small house, two lives slowly began to change. Neither of them fully understood how important this chapter would become, yet each small moment, shared meals, quiet talks, and simple acts of kindness, built a connection stronger than either of them expected. Life at the ranch slowly settled into a steady rhythm, shaped by routine and quiet cooperation. The early mornings brought soft light across the desert, and Daniel continued his daily work as he always had. But now he was no longer the only person moving through the space. Maria had begun to adapt to the ranch in ways that surprised both of them. What had started as temporary shelter was slowly becoming something more meaningful. Maria woke early each day, often before Daniel returned from checking the animals. She moved quietly through the kitchen, preparing simple meals using whatever ingredients were available. At first, she had felt unsure about touching anything without asking. But Daniel's calm encouragement gave her confidence. The house, once silent and still, now carried the gentle sounds of activity, footsteps, soft humming, and the happy noises of the baby exploring the world with curious eyes. The baby grew stronger with each passing day, laughing more often and reaching toward anything new. Daniel found himself stopping in the middle of his work just to watch those small moments. He had never imagined that the sound of a child's laughter would feel so comforting. Sometimes he caught himself smiling without realizing it, something that had become rare during his years of solitude. One afternoon, Maria joined him outside while he repaired a section of fencing damaged by strong winds. She watched closely, asking careful questions about the tools and techniques he used. Daniel explained patiently, showing her how to hold the wire steady and how to check for weak points in the structure. Though she had never done such work before, she approached it with determination.
Her willingness to learn impressed him. The desert remained unpredictable, and its challenges required constant attention.
One day brought calm skies, while the next carried strong winds or sudden changes in temperature.
Maria learned quickly that life on a ranch demanded awareness and preparation.
Daniel moved with such steady purpose, always thinking a few steps ahead. As the days passed, they spoke more openly. Their conversations were simple but meaningful, often happening during shared meals or while sitting on the porch watching the horizon. Maria shared small memories from her past, stories about places she had traveled, people she had met, and moments that had shaped her resilience. Despot. She did not dwell on sadness, but focused on lessons learned along the way. Daniel listened quietly, sometimes adding short comments or questions. He was not used to long conversations, yet with her, silence never felt uncomfortable. There was a natural balance between speaking and simply being present together. One afternoon, dark clouds gathered unexpectedly over the desert. Daniel noticed the shift in the air before the storm arrived. The wind grew stronger, carrying dust across the open land. He quickly began securing loose items around the ranch, calling to Maria to help guide the animals towards shelter. Without hesitation, she joined him, holding ropes and moving carefully despite the rising wind. The storm arrived with sudden force, pushing against the buildings and rattling windows inside the barn. They worked together to calm the animals. Maria's voice remained steady as she spoke softly to them, mirroring the calm tone Daniel often used. Bait. When they finally returned to the house, both were covered in dust but safe. They sat quietly as the storm passed, listening to the sound of wind against the walls. The moment felt different from their earlier days together. There was a deeper trust now, built through shared effort and mutual reliance. Maria realized she no longer felt like a guest. She felt part of the life here. As evening arrived, the sky cleared, revealing stars shining brightly above the desert. They stepped outside together, breathing in the cool air after the storm. Maria admitted she had never imagined herself working on a ranch or facing such challenges, yet she felt stronger than she had in a long time. Later that night, she spoke honestly about her fears. She worried about staying too long and losing her independence. She explained that she had always depended on herself and accepting help felt unfamiliar. Daniel listened carefully before responding. He told her that strength did not mean facing everything alone. Sometimes it meant allowing others to stand beside you.
His words stayed with her long after the conversation ended.
Over the following weeks, Maria continued learning new skills. She planted a small garden near the house, carefully tending to each seed as if nurturing a new beginning. Daniel watched her work with quiet admiration. The garden added color to the landscape, a gentle contrast to the dry surroundings. Their connection deepened through shared experiences rather than dramatic moments. They repaired tools together, prepared meals side by side, and watched sunsets in comfortable silence. The baby became a bridge between them, creating moments of laughter and lightness that softened even the hardest days. One morning, Maria found herself laughing freely at something small and unexpected. The sound surprised her. She realized how long it had been since she felt truly relaxed. The ranch had become more than shelter. It had become a place where she could breathe without fear. Daniel noticed the change as well. He found himself looking forward to conversations and shared meals, things he had once considered unnecessary. The loneliness that had quietly followed him for years began to fade. Despite the growing sense of belonging, Maria continued to think about the future. She wondered whether she should eventually move on, find work in a nearby town, and build her own independent life again. The thought created mixed feelings. She felt gratitude toward Daniel but did not want to rely on him forever. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sky turn deep blue, she shared these thoughts openly. Daniel listened without interrupting. When she finished, he simply said that whatever she chose, she had already proven her strength and resilience. He did not try to persuade her to stay or leave. Instead, he offered respect for her decisions. That response meant more to her than any promise could have. The desert around them remained vast and unpredictable. Yet within the ranch, a quiet transformation was taking place.
Two people who had once lived separate lives were slowly building trust, friendship, and understanding.
Neither of them fully realized how deeply their connection had grown, but it was clear in small gestures, shared smiles, thoughtful conversations, and a comfortable silence that now felt like home. As the stars appeared one by one, the ranch stood calm beneath the night sky. The journey that began with a chance meeting in the desert had turned into something steady and meaningful, shaping both their lives in ways they were only beginning to understand. Time moved quietly across the ranch, And with each passing day, the bond between Daniel and Maria grew stronger in ways neither of them had planned. What began as an act of kindness had slowly turned into a shared life built on trust, patience, and understanding. The desert outside remained vast and unpredictable, but inside the boundaries of the ranch there was a growing sense of stability. Maria had now become deeply involved in daily ranch life. She no longer felt like a visitor learning unfamiliar tasks. Instead, she moved with confidence, understanding the rhythm of the land. Early mornings began with feeding animals, checking water supplies, and preparing simple meals before the heat of the day arrived. Daniel noticed how naturally she adapted, often completing tasks without needing guidance. Her determination reminded him of the strength he had first seen when he found her walking alone in the desert. The baby had also grown stronger and more active, bringing energy and laughter into the ranch. Daniel found himself carrying the child occasionally while Maria worked, something he never imagined he would do. At first he felt awkward, unsure how to hold such a small life, but over time he became more comfortable. The child responded to his calm presence, often smiling or reaching toward him with curious hands. One afternoon, Maria decided to plant more flowers near the house. She said that small touches of color made the space feel warmer and alive. Daniel watched as she carefully prepared the soil, her hands moving gently as if she were shaping something meaningful. The garden began to grow slowly, and its presence changed the way the ranch looked. Where there had once been only dry earth, now small green leaves reached toward the sun. And despite the peaceful routine, uncertainty remained in Maria's heart. She knew she could not ignore questions about the future forever. Though she felt safe at the ranch, she wondered whether she truly belonged there long term. She had always survived by moving forward, not settling in one place. The thought of staying brought both comfort and fear. One evening, a group of travelers passed near the ranch. Their arrival caused tension. She tried to hide. She watched them from a distance, worried they might recognize her or ask questions about her past. Daniel noticed her unease immediately. Without asking directly, he stood beside her, offering quiet reassurance simply through his presence. When one of the travelers approached to ask for water, Daniel handled the conversation calmly and respectfully. Maria remained nearby, holding the baby close. The moment passed without trouble, but it reminded her how fragile safety could feel.
After the travelers left, she admitted her fear of being forced to leave again.
Daniel listened carefully and told her that no one would take away her safety here. His words were steady and sincere, and she felt a deep sense of relief.
As weeks passed, their conversations grew more open. Daniel shared more about his own past, how he had once been more connected to others but chose isolation after difficult experiences that left him feeling disconnected. He explained that working the land had helped him heal, giving him purpose and quiet strength. Maria listened closely, realizing that beneath his calm exterior was someone who had faced loneliness just as deeply as she had. One afternoon, while repairing a broken gate together, they laughed over a small mistake when a tool slipped from Daniel's hand. The laughter felt natural and effortless. Bones. Moments like this showed how much their relationship had changed. They were no longer strangers helping each other out of necessity. They had become companions who trusted each other. The ranch itself began to reflect this change, but inside the house, Maria added small personal touches, neatly arranged shelves, freshly washed curtains, and a warmth that made the space feel welcoming. Daniel noticed how returning home after a long day now felt different. Instead of entering a silent house, he found conversation, movement, and life waiting for him. One evening, as the sky turned golden and the desert cooled, Maria spoke honestly about her feelings. She admitted she had never expected kindness without conditions. Everywhere she had gone before, help often came with expectations or hidden demands. At the ranch, she felt respected and valued simply for who she was. Saying these words aloud made her emotional, and she looked away for a moment, gathering herself. Daniel responded quietly, explaining that helping her had never been about control or obligation.
He had simply seen someone in need and acted.
Yet he also admitted that her presence had changed him more than he expected. The loneliness he had grown used to no longer felt necessary. Their conversation deepened into silence, the kind that carried understanding rather than awkwardness. They watched the horizon together, each thinking about how their lives had shifted since that first meeting in the desert. But as time continued, Maria became more confident about her place on the ranch. She began suggesting ideas for improving daily routines, organizing supplies more efficiently, and preparing plans for upcoming seasons. Daniel welcomed her ideas, appreciating the fresh perspective she brought.
However, a new challenge soon arrived.
A letter from town brought news that someone had been asking questions about Maria's past travels.
The information unsettled her.
She feared old difficulties might follow her into this new life. Daniel reassured her calmly, reminding her that she had nothing to fear. He offered to accompany her to town if she ever needed to face anything directly. His support gave her courage, and for the first time she considered that perhaps she did not need to keep running from uncertainty. Maybe stability was not something to fear, but something to accept. Days passed, and the ranch continued to thrive under their shared effort. The garden grew stronger, animals remained healthy, and the house felt more alive than ever before. Small celebrations marked their progress. A successful harvest from the garden, a repaired fence that survived a strong wind, or simply a peaceful evening spent watching stars appear above the desert. One night as they sat together after a long day, Maria realized that the feeling of being a temporary guest had faded. She felt connected not only to the land but also to Daniel's quiet presence. Their relationship was built on patience rather than sudden change, making it feel real and steady. Daniel also sensed the shift. He no longer imagined the ranch returning to its old silence. Instead, he began to think about the future in a new way, one that included shared responsibility and companionship. The desert around them remained vast and sometimes harsh, but within the ranch there was warmth, trust, and the possibility of something lasting. Neither of them spoke directly about what lay ahead, yet both understood that their lives were moving toward a new chapter shaped by resilience, respect, and the quiet strength of two people who had found each other at exactly the right moment. The seasons began to change slowly across the desert, bringing cooler mornings and longer shadows that stretched across the land. Life at the ranch had settled into a rhythm that felt natural to both Daniel and Maria. What had once been unfamiliar now felt steady and dependable. Each day carried small challenges and simple joys that built a quiet sense of belonging. Maria woke early one morning before sunrise, stepping outside while the sky still held soft shades of blue and gray. The air felt fresh, and the silence of the desert wrapped around her like a gentle reminder of how far she had come. She looked toward the horizon and thought about the journey that had brought her here. The long walk across the sand, the fear and uncertainty, and the moment when Daniel appeared like a quiet answer she had not expected. Inside the house, the baby slept peacefully, growing stronger with each passing week. Watching her child thrive filled Maria with deep gratitude. She knew that without the help she had received, life might have taken a very different path. Yet she also understood that survival had come not only from being saved, but from finding a place where she could rebuild. Daniel joined her outside shortly after, carrying 2 cups of warm tea. He handed one to her without speaking, and they stood together watching the sunrise. Moments like this had become common, shared silence that felt comfortable rather than awkward. The connection between them had grown slowly, shaped by trust rather than sudden emotion. The ranch itself showed signs of change. The garden Maria had planted now held small bursts of green that stood out against the dry landscape. Animals moved calmly around the property, healthy and well cared for. Inside the house, the warmth created by shared life could be felt in every corner. One day, Daniel suggested they ride into town together. Maria hesitated at first. The memory of past struggles made her cautious about returning to public spaces. But she realized that avoiding the world would not help her move forward. With quiet determination, she agreed. The journey into town felt different from her earlier travels. This time she was not alone or uncertain. She rode beside Daniel, carrying a sense of support that gave her confidence. People in town greeted Daniel with familiarity, and he introduced Maria respectfully without drawing unnecessary attention. She felt nervous at first, but slowly relaxed as she realized that no one judged her or questioned her presence. They visited small shops, exchanged supplies, and spoke briefly with local residents. The experience allowed Maria to see herself differently. She was no longer just someone searching for survival. She was part of a community, even if that connection was still new. On their way back to the ranch, she admitted to Daniel that facing her fears had made her feel stronger. He nodded quietly, saying that courage often appeared in small steps rather than grand moments.
His words stayed with her long after the conversation ended.
As time passed, their bond deepened naturally. They worked side by side, sharing responsibilities without needing to discuss every detail. Daniel began to rely on her insight when making decisions about the ranch, and Maria felt proud knowing her presence contributed to something meaningful. One evening, a strong windstorm approached, darker and more powerful than earlier ones. Together they prepared the ranch, securing tools, guiding animals into shelter, and reinforcing structures. The storm tested their teamwork, but they faced it calmly, trusting each other completely. When the storm finally passed, they stood outside under a sky filled with stars, relieved and quietly proud of what they had accomplished together. That night, Maria reflected on how much her life had changed. She realized she no longer felt like someone passing through. The ranch had become a place where she felt safe, respected, and valued. The thought of leaving no longer felt necessary. Days later, as they worked in the garden, she spoke openly about her feelings. She told Daniel that when he found her in the desert, she had believed she would continue moving from place to place, never truly belonging anywhere. But now she felt something different, a sense of home she had not expected to find again. Daniel listened carefully, his expression thoughtful. He admitted that before she arrived, he had accepted loneliness as a permanent part of his life. Helping her had changed more than just his daily routine. It had reminded him that connection and companionship could exist without taking away independence. Their conversation marked a quiet turning point. Neither of them made dramatic promises, yet both understood that they wanted to continue building this life together. The baby grew quickly, learning to walk unsteadily across the wooden floor, bringing laughter and energy to every room. Daniel found himself teaching small lessons, guiding gentle steps and celebrating each new achievement. Maria watched these moments with warmth, recognizing how naturally he had become part of their lives. As the seasons continued to shift, the ranch transformed into a place of shared purpose. They planned improvements together, discussing new projects and future goals. Maria began selling small produce from the garden in town, creating a sense of independence while still remaining connected to the ranch. One evening, as the sun set behind distant hills, Maria thanked Daniel again for saving her that day in the desert. He responded quietly that she had saved him as well, not through dramatic actions, but by bringing life and meaning back into a space that had grown too quiet. They sat together on the porch, watching the sky turn deep shades of orange and purple. The desert stretched endlessly around them, still vast and sometimes harsh, but no longer lonely. Within that wide landscape, they had created something steady and real. The barefoot mother who once walked alone now stood strong, confident, and hopeful. The cowboy who had chosen solitude had discovered the strength of companionship. Barefoot. Together they built a future shaped by resilience, kindness, and the belief that even in the hardest environments, unexpected connections could lead to lasting change.
As night settled gently over the ranch, the stars appeared one by one.
Their journey had begun with survival, grown through trust, and now continued as a shared story. One built not on grand gestures but on everyday acts of care, patience, and understanding that turned strangers into family and a simple ranch into a true home.